The galaxy hummed with anticipation as the Empire's message echoed across the stars. A formidable force, spanning hundreds of planets and systems, the Empire had seen its dominance go unchallenged for centuries. Their power was unquestioned, their reach limitless. They had crushed countless civilizations beneath their boothiel, forcing worlds to submit without so much as a fight. But Earth was different. Earth was an unknown. The Empire's supreme commander, Valinix, was a being of vast intellect and ruthless ambition. His species had never known defeat, and he couldn't fathom why this insignificant planet at the edge of the galaxy would be any different. Earth had been left off the Empire's radar for decades, too primitive, too isolated to pose any threat. But in recent years, intelligence had suggested a sudden shift in Earth's capabilities. Something was happening on that blue and green world, a world that, until now, had been a mere curiosity. There had been whispers of advanced technology, inexplicable incidents, strange signals. It was enough to make Valinix pause. It was enough to warrant a message. The transmission was simple and direct. Humanity of Earth. The Galactic Empire has decided to extend an offer. You will surrender unconditionally and pledge your loyalty to the Empire, or you will face obliteration. Refuse, and we will bring the full weight of our might to bear. You have 72 hours to respond. The message was broadcast on every channel, cutting through the stars to Earth in a way that was impossible to ignore. It was designed to strike fear into the heart of any lesser species. The Empire's fleets were vast, their weapons devastating, and their warriors unmatched. Earth's forces, in their eyes, would be powerless in the face of such overwhelming strength. But Earth did not respond immediately. Not a single word, not a single sign of panic. The silence stretched on. Across the galaxy, the Empire's diplomats and generals waited for Earth's inevitable plea for mercy. On countless worlds, citizens watched the transmission, waiting for their own species to see the power of the Empire's dominance. The message was sent not just to Earth, but to the galaxy as a whole. There was no place for rebellion. The Empire was absolute. Valinix sat in his command center, watching as the seconds ticked by. Silence. A tiny, insignificant world was being given a chance to submit, and yet they remained silent. He waited, patience wearing thin. Where was the fear? Where was the panic? He felt a strange unease creeping over him. Could they be too proud to speak, or had they somehow already accepted their fate? He sent a follow-up transmission, more forceful this time. You have been given your chance. If you do not reply within the next 24 hours, we will consider this an act of defiance, and your planet will be eradicated. Still, nothing. The silence was deafening. The Empire's warships gathered just outside Earth's orbit, their engines ready to ignite. Valinix's face remained stoic, but inwardly, a sense of foreboding lingered. He couldn't shake the feeling that this silence was not a sign of surrender. It was something else entirely. But what? The message was clear. Earth had not given up. It had not surrendered. It had said nothing at all. And the longer the silence stretched on, the more unnerving it became. The Empire would soon learn that silence, in the case of Earth, was not weakness. It was a promise. The silence hung in the air, thick and oppressive, as the Empire's fleet loomed at the edge of Earth's atmosphere. From their vantage point, a mere flicker of a planet, blue and green beneath the blackness of space, sat awaiting its fate. The sheer arrogance of it all was staggering. In the Empire's mind, Earth was a minor world, a speck in the vast cosmic ocean, too far from the heart of the galaxy, too primitive to pose any real threat. And yet this world, insignificant by their standards, had dared to defy the Empire's might by doing nothing at all. The Supreme Commander Valinix stood before a holographic map, his sharp, calculating eyes scanning the readouts of Earth's defense systems. The reports were unsettling. They spoke of strange activity beneath Earth's surface, technological advancements that seemed far beyond the planet's known capabilities. Yet, despite these reports, no signs of mass mobilization, no signs of panic had been detected. Earth was silent. Their military was quiet. The humans, it seemed, had no intention of preparing for war. Valinix's lips curled into a thin smile. This is nothing but a bluff, he thought. They are intimidated, waiting for our next move. Perhaps they think they can hide behind their primitive technology and hope we will leave them be. How quaint. The commander turned to his officers. They think they can outlast us with silence. But what they fail to understand is that the Empire is inevitable. They have no resources, no allies. If they refuse to submit, they will fall like all the others. He spoke with the unshakable certainty of someone who had never known defeat. The officers around him nodded. The fleet, thousands of ships armed with the most advanced weaponry the galaxy had ever seen, awaited orders. The first strike would be swift, overwhelming. There would be no escape for the humans, only surrender or destruction. After all, the Empire's power was unmatched, its grip on the galaxy ironclad. But the silence still gnawed at the edges of Valinix's mind. It was unnatural. Something wasn't right. He dismissed the thought. Fear, even the smallest trace of it, was not something he allowed in his leadership. He had to focus. The Empire would send a force so overwhelming, so complete, that Earth's final resistance would be crushed before it even began. As the hours passed, the Empire's warships shifted into position, silently hovering over Earth, their weapons charged. A terrifying calm fell over the fleet as they prepared to strike. Valinix turned to his chief strategist. Begin the bombardment. Give them one last chance to surrender. The orders were relayed. The first salvo, an intense volley of energy blasts, streaked toward Earth's atmosphere. It was the beginning of the end, or so Valinix thought. The humans had made their choice. There would be no negotiations. The silence had been a foolish hope, a childish fantasy. Now, the Empire would show them the price of defiance. But the moment the first energy blasts neared Earth's atmosphere, something unexpected happened. Instead of tearing through the planet's defenses, the shots vanished. No explosion, no destruction, no debris. Valinix's eyes widened as the data from the attack filtered in. The energy waves, the powerful strikes meant to annihilate, had simply disappeared into thin air, as if they had never been fired. There was no explanation for it. Report, Valinix barked. One of the officers quickly checked the readings. Commander, we're detecting nothing. The attacks have been neutralized. For a brief moment, the silence was broken, but only by the crackling tension in the command room. The room was silent again, save for the nervous shuffling of boots on the metal floors. They had never seen anything like this. The enemy's technology, whatever it was, had rendered their most powerful weapons utterly useless. Valinix's hands tightened into fists. He couldn't hide the frustration beginning to burn beneath his cool demeanor. Earth was not what they had assumed. Earth was not scared, nor was it unprepared. Something was happening. The silent planet had just made its first move. The Empire's forces had underestimated Earth, and now, it seemed, they would pay the price. The Empire's fleet had been left stunned, hovering in orbit as the reports flooded in. The unexpected disappearance of their energy blasts had left them scrambling for answers. Supreme Commander Valinix paced back and forth in the command room, his hands clasped behind his back, his mind working furiously to make sense of what had just happened. This was not a random malfunction or an unexplained anomaly. It was deliberate. Earth had done something. You're telling me that our most advanced weaponry was neutralized with no explanation. Valinix's voice was dangerously calm, but there was a flicker of anger beneath it. Yes, Commander, replied one of the officers, his voice shaky. We've scanned every system. Our technology is functioning perfectly. But the blasts, they just didn't reach the planet. We don't understand how it happened. Valinix's mind raced. What kind of defense could Earth have built to counter an empire of such power? He had been dismissive of the planet's potential. After all, Earth had been seen as little more than a backwater world, isolated and far behind in technological development. Yet, something had shifted. There was no way this could be a coincidence. He turned to his chief strategist, a cold, calculating officer named Nilaris. Prepare a full analysis of Earth's capabilities. If they can neutralize our attacks, they must have something hidden on the planet's surface. We need to know everything about their technology. Nilaris nodded, already typing commands into her console. Understood, Commander. We've already sent recon drones to begin scanning the surface. But Earth's electromagnetic field is peculiar. We've had trouble getting clear readings. Valinix clenched his jaw. This was more than a slight inconvenience. It was a challenge to the Empire's absolute dominance. And that was not something to be taken lightly. Meanwhile, on Earth, the silence continued. The leaders of the planet had gathered in secret, meeting in a secure underground bunker far below the world's surface. The governments of Earth, representatives from every corner of the globe, had known this day would come. They had prepared for it. And now, the world was about to see what humanity had been hiding for decades. The truth was, Earth had been under constant observation. Its governments, secret scientific agencies, and military forces had been quietly preparing for this exact moment, while the general population went about their daily lives. Unaware of the looming threat, Earth's best minds had been working in secret. They had known that one day, something, would come to challenge them, and they had planned for that. One such project, known only by a select few as Project Helios, had begun many years ago. It was a comprehensive research and development program aimed at mastering energy manipulation, weaponized defense systems, and most crucially, developing ways to conceal Earth's true technological progress from any would-be invaders. By the time the Empire's threat had finally arrived, Earth's defense networks were not just on par with the best the galaxy had to offer. They were beyond it. Earth's global space defense system had been activated the moment the Empire's ships entered orbit. The planet had built fleets of advanced ships, but more importantly, humanity had developed cloaking technologies that rendered any form of direct attack nearly useless. Any energy weapon launched from space would be absorbed, refracted, or redirected through Earth's atmosphere. And this was just the beginning. In a hidden military facility beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, engineers and scientists monitored the developing situation. "We're ready," one of them muttered, watching the Empire's ships on the live feed. "Let's see how they handle this." The silence had been deliberate. The Empire's arrogance had allowed them to misjudge Earth's capabilities. But now, the world was ready to show them what they were truly up against. The first wave of Earth's weapons systems came online, highly advanced, almost unrecognizable energy beams designed to incapacitate rather than destroy. Humanity didn't need to obliterate the Empire. They simply needed to show them that Earth would not bend, would not break. A countdown began. On the surface, the Empire's fleet prepared for the next phase of their assault. But in the shadows, Earth's power was awakening, ready to remind the invaders of one simple truth. Humanity was never as weak as they had assumed. And now, the Empire would learn just how dangerous Earth could be. The Empire's fleet sat like a looming storm above Earth, its ships spread out in a disciplined formation, weapons primed and ready. Commander Valinix stood at the helm of his flagship, staring down at the blue planet below. His face was stern, betraying nothing of the frustration bubbling beneath. The reports from his officers were unsettling, but he had seen it all before. What could a world as small and primitive as Earth truly have hidden beneath its surface? No matter what countermeasures they had, nothing could withstand the full power of the Empire. "Begin the bombardment," Valinix ordered coldly, his voice devoid of any hesitation. "We will break their silence and their spirit in one swift stroke." The Empire's warships fired in unison, massive energy beams that crackled through space, cutting a path toward Earth's surface. These weapons, capable of reducing cities to dust in seconds, streaked across the void, their targeting systems locked onto key infrastructure sites around the globe. It was the Empire's signature first strike, designed to break the enemy's defenses and demoralize their population. Earth would be no different. But as the beams neared the planet, something strange happened. The energy bursts flickered for a brief instant, as though they were encountering a force they couldn't comprehend. Then, in a breathtaking moment of defiance, the attack simply vanished. Valinix's eyes widened. What? He slammed his fist against the console. Report now. We don't understand, Commander, one of his officers stammered. The blasts. They vanished before making contact with Earth's atmosphere. There's no trace of them anywhere. Impossible. Valinix snapped. Run a full diagnostic of the weapon systems. What happened to the energy? His officers scrambled, checking every possible cause. But the more they investigated, the more they came to the same conclusion. Earth had somehow neutralized their most powerful weapons without even trying. There were no defensive shields in place, no counterattacks to explain the phenomenon. The blasts simply didn't reach the planet. How is that possible? Valinix muttered under his breath, his mind racing. He had never encountered anything like this. It was as though Earth had found a way to nullify the very laws of physics. Commander, one of the officers said hesitantly, we've detected something else. It's not a counterattack, but we believe Earth has deployed a defensive grid. We're reading vast energy fields around the planet's surface. It's not conventional. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Valinix's mind raced. This was not a primitive world. Earth had been hiding something extraordinary. The very laws of energy seemed to bend around the planet, protecting it from the Empire's most devastating assault. His heart pounded as he tried to come to terms with the implications. If Earth could do this, what else were they capable of? Meanwhile, on the surface, humanity watched in awe as their defenses held firm. In underground bunkers, military officers, scientists, and government leaders exchanged nervous glances. The first strike from the Empire had failed, but no one was celebrating yet. The war was just beginning. Above them, Earth's secret weaponry hummed to life. Deep beneath the ocean, in classified military facilities, technicians activated the next phase of Earth's plan. High-powered energy grids and silent satellite weapons fired up, ready to counter whatever the Empire threw at them next. The world's leaders, united for the first time in history, watched as Earth's hidden might revealed itself piece by piece. They had prepared for this moment for decades. The Empire had underestimated them, assuming they were defenseless, assuming that silence equaled surrender. But the truth was far different. Earth had been quietly biding its time, perfecting technology, weapons, and strategies they had never revealed to the outside world. As the Empire reoriented its fleet and began preparing for another attack, Earth's forces were not idle. They had plans of their own, plans that would ensure the invaders never stood a chance. The first wave of Earth's retaliation was subtle but devastating. With pinpoint precision, Earth's cloaked satellites launched a series of strikes. These were not raw displays of firepower, but calculated, deliberate attacks aimed at disabling the Empire's technological superiority. Their shields, their communication systems, their fleet coordination, all of it began to fragment. The Empire's once perfect war machines faltered, and their commanders were forced to reassess. The battle had shifted, and now it was Earth's turn to set the terms. The Empire's fleet remained in orbit, hovering like a shadow over Earth. Supreme Commander Valinix clenched his fists, staring out at the planet below. The failure of their initial attack had thrown him into a rare state of uncertainty. He had never seen anything like it. For the first time in his long, illustrious career, he felt the creeping sensation of doubt. This planet, this small, insignificant speck, had done something he had thought impossible. His officers had been scrambling for answers ever since the first volley had been neutralized. Their communication systems were glitching, and their scanners could no longer accurately map Earth's defenses. Every effort to penetrate the planet's mysterious energy field had failed. This wasn't just a technological anomaly, it was a declaration of war. The humans weren't going to roll over and die as the Empire had expected. They were fighting back. "Commander, we've detected new energy signatures from the planet's surface," one of his officers reported, voice tight with concern. It's as though they're rerouting power into a massive defense grid. There's a series of harmonic pulses, almost like a pulse weapon designed to disrupt our systems. Valinix turned sharply, narrowing his eyes. A defense grid. A pulse weapon. Where did they get this technology? He slammed his fist onto the command console, frustration boiling over. "We've underestimated them, but we won't make that mistake again. Prepare the fleet. I want the next strike to be overwhelming. We will break them before they have time to fully mobilize." The officers scrambled to follow his orders, relaying commands throughout the fleet. Yet even as Valinix prepared for the second strike, he could not ignore the unsettling feeling gnawing at him. He had never been one to second-guess himself, but Earth's resilience was something new, something unknown, and that was a threat in and of itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity's leaders had gathered in a massive underground war room. It was a place few outside of the world's highest command structures knew of, but today it would play host to the world's most powerful minds. The entire global military structure, top scientific minds, and political figures from every nation were now united, working together toward one goal: survival. Earth had no illusions. The Empire would not stop, and their next move would be even more devastating. But the humans had learned something from the first strike. They had the tools to fight back. But they had to be careful. Their technology, while impressive, was still new, and the Empire was relentless. "We need to hit them where it hurts," General Liu said, his voice steady but edged with urgency. "We know their fleet is relying heavily on centralized command. If we can disable their communication systems, it'll create chaos within their ranks. We can break their coordination." "Agreed." Dr. Armitage, a leading scientist specializing in energy weapons, added, "We've already deployed the EMP disruptors, but we need to increase the output to a planetary level. It's risky, but it might be the only way to disable their fleet before they can retaliate." "The risks are high," President Garcia said, her face tight with concern. "But I don't see any other option. They've shown us they'll stop at nothing to destroy us. We need to push back, not just in defense, but in offense." The room fell into a tense silence, the weight of their decision hanging heavy in the air. But after a moment, the decision was made. Earth would launch a counterattack, an all-out offensive using everything at their disposal. The Empire had misjudged Earth's capabilities, and now the time had come to show them just how wrong they were. Above Earth, the Empire's fleet began to reposition itself for their second strike. Valinix watched as his ships moved into a new formation, ready to overwhelm the planet once and for all. This time, the attack would be relentless. They would use everything at their disposal to crush this insignificant world and show the galaxy that defiance would not be tolerated. But just as the first energy blast was about to be fired, the Empire's fleet began to experience a strange disruption. The lights in the command center flickered. Communication systems went down. The targeting systems began to malfunction. Crew members frantically typed on consoles, trying to regain control. "Report," Valinix demanded, his voice rising. "Commander, something's wrong. Our systems, everything is shutting down. We're losing control of the fleet." A massive pulse of energy surged from Earth's surface, rippling through space, sending shockwaves through the Empire's fleet. The precise, coordinated attack they had planned was suddenly thrown into disarray. Valinix's face went pale as he watched his fleet falter in real time, unable to maintain the precision they had relied on. It was happening again. Earth's silent defiance had turned into an unstoppable force. Earth had just shown the Empire the true cost of underestimating them. The battle was no longer just about defense. It was a war of attrition, and Earth was fighting back with everything it had. The Empire had made a grave mistake, and now it was their turn to feel the weight of humanity's wrath. I've pushed the stakes higher, showing the Empire's frustration and the growing tension as Earth retaliates. The surprise counterattack with electromagnetic pulses gives the humans an edge, and the Empire is reeling. Let me know if you want me to keep going. The chaos aboard the Empire's fleet was palpable. Across every ship, panic spread like wildfire as systems continued to falter. Lights flickered. Communications went dead. Weapons systems powered down. Crew members shouted over the crackling comms, trying to regain control, but nothing seemed to work. "Commander, we've lost control of our firing systems," an officer yelled over the comms, his voice trembling. "The disruption is spreading through the entire fleet. We can't lock onto targets. We can't fire." Supreme Commander Valinix's eyes were cold, but his hands were shaking. The second wave was supposed to be their victory, the moment they finally crushed Earth's resistance once and for all. Now it was slipping through his fingers. Earth had not only survived the first strike, but turned the tables, disrupting the very essence of the Empire's technological superiority. "I want every ship to engage manual override protocols. Get those systems back online, now," Valinix barked. "We're not losing to a bunch of primitives." But deep down, he knew this wasn't just a technical glitch. There was something far more deliberate at play. Earth had not only defended itself, it had just demonstrated a power that the Empire had never even considered. The harmony of the pulse weapons, the frequency of the energy fields, it was as though Earth's very atmosphere had become an impenetrable shield. The Empire's most advanced technologies were no match. On Earth, humanity's leaders watched in silent anticipation as their pulse weapon systems continued to strike at the Empire's fleet. The response had been everything they hoped for, but the battle was far from over. They had bought themselves time, yes, but Earth had to be ready for what was coming next. In a fortified command center deep within the Arctic Circle, General Liu stood, gazing at the holographic map before him. His brow furrowed as he studied the incoming data. "We've disrupted their fleet's ability to attack, but they're regrouping. They'll find a way to overcome this." "Not if we can help it," Dr. Armitage replied, her fingers flying over the console. "We've built in a failsafe. If we can channel the pulse technology directly into their command center, we might be able to cripple their entire fleet at once. We just need to time it perfectly." General Liu nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Do it. No second chances. We don't know how long we can maintain the current disruption. If we wait too long, they'll adapt, and this moment will pass." As the general spoke, President Garcia entered the room. She had been coordinating global forces, making sure that Earth's military response remained unified. But now, it was time for her to make a decision. She walked over to the console, her voice calm but resolute. "We've got one shot at this. Earth is united in this fight, but we need to be certain. We need to hit them hard. This is the moment we've been waiting for." "We're ready," Dr. Armitage responded, her tone confident. She pushed a final set of buttons on the console, and a series of satellites began to pulse with energy. Earth's global defense network, built for moments like this, hummed to life. Above Earth, the Empire's fleet had begun to recover from the initial assault, but Valinix's frustration was evident. His fleet was slowly regaining power, but the damage was far from repaired. Their weapon systems were still inconsistent. The Empire's ships, once sleek and invincible, now floated in a state of disarray, vulnerable. Valinix was no longer in control. He could feel it. The balance had shifted, and it was no longer about sheer might. The Empire had underestimated Earth in ways they couldn't even comprehend, and the realization of that truth clawed at Valinix's mind. "We're launching another strike," he muttered to himself, determination hardening his voice. "This will not end until we've shown them who is in charge. We cannot let this humiliation stand. He turned to his chief strategist, his voice low and dangerous. Prepare for a full-scale attack. But this time, we focus on their pulse weapons. We target their control centers. Disable them, and the rest will fall. The final preparations were underway. Earth's defense systems had reached their peak, ready for the next move in this deadly game. Valinix was preparing for his retaliation, but what he did not realize was that his time was running out. Earth's response was no longer just a defense. It was a counterstrike, calculated, methodical, and relentless. The next phase of the war was upon them, and neither side was willing to back down. The Empire's fleet was finally beginning to stabilize, but the cost had been steep. Every ship, every officer aboard, was now acutely aware of the precariousness of their position. Supreme Commander Valinix stood in front of the massive viewports of his flagship, eyes scanning the blue-green orb below. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Earth had proven to be a far more formidable opponent than he had ever anticipated. But this time, he would not hesitate. Earth's ability to disrupt their systems had thrown them off course. But now, Valinix was ready to bring the full might of the Empire down on the planet. There would be no more waiting. No more caution. The time had come to end this conflict. Ready the assault, Valinix ordered, his voice unwavering. We will cripple their defenses and neutralize their infrastructure. Nothing will stop us this time. The fleet readied itself, every ship now powered to full capacity, with weapons locked and targeting systems aligned. But even as they prepared to launch their decisive blow, Valinix couldn't shake the feeling that something more was coming. Earth had shown them a glimpse of their hidden power, and Valinix couldn't afford to ignore it. The humans had fought back with an unexpected force. How could they possibly be so prepared? On Earth, President Garcia stood before a global summit of military leaders, scientists, and advisors. The energy in the room was palpable. Humanity had faced the first wave of the Empire's attack, and they had survived. But only just. The enemy wasn't going to relent. The next strike would be their hardest yet. We've pushed back their initial assault, Garcia said, her voice resolute, though her eyes betrayed the weight of the responsibility she carried. But we can't rest. The Empire is adapting. We've disrupted their systems, but they're on the verge of launching a full-scale attack. We need to be ready for the next wave. And we need to show them that Earth will never surrender. General Liu, standing at her side, nodded grimly. Our pulse weapons have disrupted their fleet systems, but it won't hold forever. We need to hit them harder before they get the chance to launch their full offensive. We've built enough momentum to strike back. Dr. Armitage, the lead scientist behind the pulse technology, stepped forward. We're working on the final phase of the counterstrike. The satellite arrays are ready, but we can't waste any more time. If the Empire launches its assault now, we'll be facing a war of attrition. We'll lose resources and ground before we even have a chance to deploy our final weapon. They all knew the stakes. The human race had faced destruction in a way they had never expected. But in this dire moment, they had learned something crucial about themselves. They could stand their ground. They could fight back. And now, they were prepared to go on the offensive. Above, in the cold depths of space, Valinix's flagship fired its first volley of energy beams, a lethal barrage aimed directly at Earth's atmosphere. This time, they would break through. There would be no more interference from Earth's defense systems. The beams rocketed toward the planet, bright flashes lighting up the dark expanse of space. But this time, Earth was prepared. The pulse arrays, now fully activated, fired in unison, a brilliant wave of energy that surged through the sky. The first blast from the Empire collided with the pulse, only to be absorbed, redirected, and repelled. The technology was working. Earth's shield was holding strong. The Empire's second wave followed, faster and more powerful. It struck Earth's defenses with terrifying force, but still, the pulse arrays held. Each attack was absorbed, scattered, or neutralized before it could reach the surface. Yet Valinix, Ever the strategist, had anticipated that Earth would push back with everything they had. He wasn't about to let this end in failure. He turned to his chief strategist. Launch the secondary assault. Target their power grid. We'll overload their systems. If we can cut off their defense network, they'll be forced to retreat. Valinix's fleet launched a second wave, targeting Earth's power centers with pinpoint precision. The beams shot toward the planet's surface. But this time, the Empire was in for a surprise. Humanity's counterattack had begun. As the Empire's forces moved in for their second strike, Earth's systems continued to hum with quiet, deadly precision. Deep below the surface, hidden facilities began to activate, the final phase of Earth's plan. The pulse weapons that had disrupted the Empire's fleet were only the beginning. Now, humanity would take the war to the Empire itself. The time for silence was over. Earth was no longer hiding in the shadows. It was ready to take the fight directly to the invaders. The next phase would be one of retaliation, a strike that the Empire could never have anticipated. It was a game changer, and it was coming. The sky above Earth shimmered with energy as the Empire's fleet prepared for their decisive strike. Supreme Commander Valinix's face remained grim as his ships fired the final barrage of energy beams, intent on breaking through Earth's defenses once and for all. His commanders had assured him that this time, the human shields would fall. They were close, too close to fail now. But as the beams shot toward Earth, there was a sudden shift in the air, something intangible, yet undeniable. The pulse arrays below activated once again. But this time, they were not simply absorbing the Empire's firepower. They were amplifying it. Valinix's eyes widened in disbelief as Earth's defense system reversed the energy beams, redirecting them back toward the Empire's fleet. A wave of pure force collided with the invading ships, causing several of them to spiral out of control. The shockwave was so powerful that entire sections of the fleet lost power, their lights flickering like dying stars. "This is impossible," Valinix growled, gripping the edge of his command console. "Regain control. Return fire." But it was too late. The energy surge had already crippled a third of the fleet. The once unified force was now disjointed, scattered, and reeling. Earth was no longer just defending itself. They were attacking. Back on Earth, President Garcia stood in the Global Command Center, her eyes fixed on the screens as the energy pulse collided with the Empire's fleet. The room was silent, the collective breath of humanity held in anxious anticipation. "Now," Garcia whispered to herself, "now we show them." Around her, military leaders, scientists, and political figures waited for the next phase to unfold. The pulse had already begun to turn the tide, but Earth's true counterattack was yet to come. In a hidden facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Earth's final weapon, the subspace disruptor, was activated. It had been a closely guarded secret, an invention so powerful, so dangerous, that only a select few even knew of its existence. This weapon didn't just disrupt energy fields. It created temporary black holes, small and contained, capable of destabilizing entire fleets. As the disruptor powered up, its energy spread across the planet, coursing into satellites that formed a silent web in space. With one final command, the weapon was unleashed. Above Earth, the Empire's remaining fleet, still struggling to regroup, felt the effects immediately. The very fabric of space itself twisted and buckled as the subspace disruptors activated. Valinix's remaining ships were caught in a violent storm of warped gravity and energy, their once precise movements now unpredictable and chaotic. Several ships were torn apart, their hulls ripped open by the intense forces, while others simply disappeared into the black void. The communication systems across the fleet went silent. No reports, no transmissions, just the cold emptiness of space and the ever-growing chaos. Valinix's flagship, the heart of the invasion, was now a drifting wreck, its command systems down, and its crew scrambling to survive. "Commander, we're losing everything," an officer said, his voice cracking. "We can't fight back. They've broken us. Valinix gritted his teeth, staring at the destruction unfolding around him. He had underestimated Earth, and now it was too late to change the tide. The Empire's once invincible fleet was crumbling. On Earth, the world watched as their plan unfolded. Cities that had been in peril just hours ago were now bathed in the light of victory. Humanity had not only survived, it had taken control of the war. But the battle wasn't just a matter of firepower. It was about will. Earth had shown the Empire something they had never expected: humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and unity. President Garcia addressed the world, her voice calm but filled with undeniable strength. "We have fought back the invaders. Earth will not be conquered. We have shown the Empire that we are not to be underestimated. We are not just survivors. We are warriors. And this is just the beginning." Around the world, humanity cheered, their voices rising in a unified cry. For the first time, they had fought not just for survival, but for their place in the universe. And they had won. As Valinix's fleet crumbled, his gaze turned toward Earth one final time. He had failed. Earth had defeated them, not with sheer firepower, but with their will and unity. The once unthinkable had come to pass. The Empire had lost. The humans had sent their message across the stars, and the universe would never forget it. In the end, Earth had not only survived the Empire's assault, they had turned the invaders' own tactics against them, proving that the true strength of humanity lay not in weapons or technology, but in their unyielding determination to protect their home.